So the first of the 6 accounting assertions are existence and occurrence, which is whether or not a company's assets, liabilities, and equity interests exist, as well as whether relevant transactions have actually occurred. Number 2, the second assertion is rights and obligations. This determines whether or not a company actually has the right to the assets stated, as well as whether its liabilities are actually future obligations of the company. Third would be completeness, and that's whether or not the assets, liabilities, equity interest, and transactions that should have been recorded actually have been recorded. The fourth assertion is cutoff, and that's whether or not transactions and events have been recorded in the proper accounting period. Number 5 would be valuation, allocation, and accuracy, and that determines whether or not assets, liabilities, equity interests, and transactions have been properly recorded in their proper amounts in the financial statements. And the last one, reporting, or no, pardon me, presentation and disclosure. This is whether or not the accounts have been properly recorded in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and whether or not financial statements have been recorded clearly with no room for confusion. So that wraps up the 6 assertions. So we'll go right into the 6 steps of the audit plan. The first step is to plan the audit. This is where the auditor begins to establish an understanding with the client as far as the engagement of the audit, as far as what financial statements need to be audited, as well as any regulatory filings with the SEC that need to be examined. Number 2 in the audit plan is for the auditor to obtain an understanding of the client, the company's background, and any internal controls. And what this would entail for the auditor is for inquiry into management, as well as inspection and observation of the company's activities and day-to-day operations. Number 3 would be for an auditor to assess the risk of material misstatement in financial statements, as well as design further audit procedures. So what an auditor would do here is to determine what could go wrong, the magnitude of a problem if it was to go wrong, as well as the likelihood of a misstatement. The next step, the 4th step in the audit plan, would be for the auditor to actually perform the audit procedures, the further audit procedures. This could include further inquiry into management or even potentially outside legal counsel, as well as continuing to inspect a company's operations, continue to inspect an operations or even a recalculation for an auditor. And the 5th step in the audit plan would be for an auditor to actually complete the audit. And what goes on here is an auditor begins to examine the financial statements, checking for any potential unrecorded liabilities, loss contingencies, as well as obtained representation, a letter of representation from management. And finally, the 6th step in the audit plan is to form an opinion and issue a report. For public companies, this typically only entails financial statements and internal controls of a company. And for a private company, this is usually strictly financial statements. Thank you.